Hello everyone, and welcome back at today's analysis. As now on the 144th episode, we are going to discuss about the Fairy Godmother, the main antagonist of the 2004 film Shrek 2, and overall one of the main antagonists of the Shrek franchise, and definitely one of the most memorable villains made from throughout the franchise. As well as the only one to be female, the Fairy Godmother, or better yet, this version of her, could be considered to be the darkest version of the character ever created. And the only version of the Fairy Godmother that we already knew from the fairy tales to actually be a villain. And in this episode, we're going to discuss all that we know about her throughout the movie, to better understand the Fairy Godmother, and how and why she is this way to begin with. And now, let's begin. Much about the fairy godmother's past is largely unknown. All that we know about her is the fact that her real name is confirmed to be Dama Fortuna, and she is some sort of a medieval equivalent to a CEO of her own company that makes potions. And she also has a son, Charming Fortuna, better known as Prince Charming, which she dearly loves and cherishes, but also has no problem in using him into her political schemes. And she wanted her son to save Princess Fiona from the tower and to release her from the ogre curse, so he can marry with her and to be the next king of Far Far Away, and she can be the most powerful businesswoman in the kingdom. And of course, while the plan was supposed to go smooth, unfortunately life had other plans, as is revealed eventually that Fiona found herself a husband in Shrek, an ogre who saved her from the tower and married with her, and saved her also from Lord Farquaad. And of course, the fairy godmother was absolutely angry about this, given the fact that she already had an arrangement with King Harold. And so, eventually, Shrek, in order to make Fiona happy, decided to burst into her company and stole a potion to make himself into a human, as in order for him to appear more to be accepted by Fiona and by her family. And so the fairy godmother used this in order for her advantage by tricking Fiona to believe that her son, Prince Charming, is the human version of Shrek, all of the while trying to manipulate Shrek to go back to the swamp. But unfortunately, all of these have failed, as he even arrived in the last moment to save the day. And now, before we continue, we need to stop and ask ourselves, is the fairy godmother evil? And I put this question because of the fact that while it's an undeniable fact that what she does is evil, she could be considered quite kind of a low type of evil comparison to other villains. I mean, Lord Farquaad literally tried to murder both Shrek and Fiona and be king himself. In tandem with the fact that he also tried to destroy magical creatures. So her son Prince Charming was literally led a revolution into the sequel to avenge her death, and Rumpelstiltskin literally altered the timeline to his benefit. The fairy godmother, all she wanted to do was only to marry her kid, and she pretty much only used spells and chants without killing anybody. Thus, not to mention that the fairy godmother has come across to be a very racist and xenophobic woman, and she does all of these things to also to prove a point, to prove that ogres do not have anything that's close to a happily ever after. But ultimately, it proved to be her that didn't achieve this. Not to mention that while she does love and care for her son, she seems to love only her goals and her business a bit more. And not to mention that she has no problem to literally use Prince Charming in her political schemes. And as the answer ultimately is yes, the fairy godmother is evil, but to be honest, she's quite a low kind of evil comparison with the other villains. And at the end, her plans have failed as Shrek managed to save Fiona, and eventually she and Prince Charming have failed, resulting in her demise and ending her threat for good. So in the end, who was the fairy godmother? She was nothing more but a simple person with magical abilities that try to do anything that it takes for her own benefit and in her own goals. A woman willing to use even her family to advance her own career and her own power in the process. And a woman that could easily be called as one of the most memorable villains made into an animated film. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to give a like and subscribe. Have a nice day.
Get the one! I see frogs!